Today marks the 22nd anniversary of the devastating earthquake that struck Luzon in 1990. While it has been over 2 decades, survivors remember the tragedy as if it just happened yesterday. Ina Adolong has more.
22 years have passed since the 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck central Luzon. While there are no longer traces of the earthquake that killed over 1,600 people and destroyed numerous structures, its survivors can still clearly recall the longest and most unforgettable 45 seconds of their lives. JJ Landingin was a newbie photojournalist from Baguio at the time of the tragedy. He and his friends were enjoying a couple of beers when the earthquake struck.
Lindol na pala yun. So lindol na, tapos bumagsak na yung buildings. Pagbagsak ng buildings, we tried to pull out some people that we know, or people were there in the building. Tapos continue shooting, tapos parang it was a scene from, you know, those catastrophic movies. Nagdilim ang kalangitan. It became so dark, then started to rain hail. Then there were thunderclaps.
As any photojournalist, JJ's first instinct was to take photos. He says he's thankful for that because it made him more calm and focused on what he needed to do, which included helping people get to safer places.
You know, you wouldn't expect it would happen in a very nice afternoon, having a couple of beers with friends. The next thing you know, people were missing. Some people that you know you will not see anymore because they died in the rubble or they were lost on transit packet ng Baguio.
Among the survivors from Baguio, Pedrito D's experience is among the most told. Pedrito was an employee of the Hyatt Hotel, which collapsed during the earthquake. He was buried under the hotel's rubble and was pulled out after 15 days. Pedrito survived by drinking rainwater that would drip down to where he was.
Pagka umuulan, kung ano yung tubig na nandun, yun na lang yung iniinom ko. Marumi man o malinis, hindi ko alam. Kung asan yung tubig na naririnig ko na pumapatak, parang ibon ba na nakanganga na lang.
Pedrico recalls he would go further down the rubble with every aftershock that passed. To make it worse, he says, it happened with dead bodies around him and other victims under the rubble, seriously injured and crying out for help.
Nakaupo pa rin ako, pero habang tumatagal, hanggang nakahiga na lang ako. Ay, yung mga aftershock niya is bumababa yung kinakalagyan. Hanggang sinabi ko na Diyos ko, kunin mo na lang ako, huwag mo na akong pahirapan. Yun yung word na binitawan ko.
While their memories of the earthquake are still clear, JJ and Pedrito say they've both moved on and just look back at their experiences, thankful that they survived. They say they can only hope that a similar disaster will not strike in the future, so that people can be spared from the nightmare that they witnessed. Ina Adolong, Solar News.
The Christian colleges of the Philippines in Cabanatuan was one of the most devastated areas during the 1990 earthquake that shook Luzon. Thousands of lives were lost, and to this day, those who survived are still suffering. Carol Ramoran has that story.
Jesus Castillo lost his leg on his first year in college. He was only 18 years old when the Luzon earthquake caused his school in Cabanatuan to collapse. He was at the 3rd floor when one of the building's beams crushed his right leg. On July 16, 1990, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Luzon that killed 1,621 people. Most of the casualties were from the Hyatt Hotel that collapsed in Baguio City and the Christian College of the Philippines in Cabanatuan. Jesus was among the survivors in CCP, who admits that the tragedy has caused him more than physical pain.
Nasa ospital nga ako, dalawang linggo akong tulog eh. Nung magising ako, wala na isang paa ko. Hanggang sa nagwawala ako, ginagapos ako ng mga doktor ko. Hindi ko nga matanggap.
He says that he was just lucky that he was one of the first people to be pulled out from the building, but the tragedy left him traumatized. Jesus adds that when he lost his leg, he lost half of his life.
Dati, nung nahihiya ako lumabas, maganda sana buhay ko. Baka nakapag-upload pa ako na.
Death and tragedy also caused high school friends from CCP, Ronnie, Esmeraldo, Angelita, and Magdalena to part ways. This is the first time they have seen each other since the earthquake. Among the four, it was Esmeraldo who suffered the most after he spent the night in the building with his left arm crushed under a big block of cement and was the last to be rescued from their class.
Sabi ko, putulin niyo na yung kamay ko. Ayaw naman nila kasi tinanong po ako kung anong edad na ako. Sabi ko, 15 nga po. Di daw po pwede kasi bata pa daw po nga. Kaya hindi rin po naputol yung kamay ko. Kaya, papasalamat din po ako kung hindi po naputol. Kung naputol, ala po akong kamay ngayon.
High school classmates Jessica Santos and Ronnie Lauchenko say this is the first time they are seeing the photos from the quake. Jessica says it took them years to get over the tragedy. They both admit that it's an ill-at-ease feeling looking at the photos of the collapsed school.
Kanina ko lang ito nakakita, kinilabutan po ako.
Opo talaga, nakakakilabot. Hindi ko,
Kinilabutan ako kanina.
ako din po, hindi ko sukat akalain na ganyan pala yun. Ganun, hindi, para bang, sabi ko, nabuhay ba tayo dyan sa ganyang klase ng bagsak, yung pagkakaguho.
Doing the rescue operations, former Olongapo Mayor Richard Gordon was one of the people who responded, together with American soldiers and Navy men who were then docked in Subic. The place where CCP used to be now has a Bureau of Internal Revenue regional office and a small computer science college. The only remaining part of the school that collapsed is this entrance, which used to lead to the school's quadrangle and main door. Survivors say that the new structures that replaced CCP are welcoming sights, which help them move on and realize that one must always pick himself up from the rubble and start anew. Carol Ramoran, Solar News.